Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Julie Hamilton with Life Builders. Thank you so much for coming to visit. I just realized that I didn't turn on the record button, so hold on. I'm going to turn it on right now. Hey, I'm so glad that you joined us today, and today we are talking about a book called Everybody Always. If you want a book that sounds so sweet, doesn't it sound sweet? And it looks so sweet. It's gonna kick your butt. If you wanna read something that's gonna change your year, read this book. This book is powerful. It is challenging. It is going to make you stretch. It's going to make you hurt. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you love more. It's going to make you do a lot of things that you never expected, and it will probably challenge you in some unexpected ways. The book is called Everybody Always by Bob Goff. Now, if you don't know Bob Goff, he used to be a lawyer. He was a lawyer for 30 years, and then he stopped doing law to start encouraging people. He's a really interesting guy because he has a pilot's license. He is a professor at Pepperdine, and his office is on Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. If you follow him on Instagram or whatever, I just saw yesterday he put a picture of it. He's like, office hours are on. But literally, he just has a very unconventional way of looking at the world. And he loves balloons, and I wanted to have like all full of balloons this morning, but I ran out of time. So that's an aside. But I did want to share with you some of the things that reading this book, they really stick with you and they give you something to think about. There's so many that we could go into. His writing style is very easy to read. It's a combination of stories and lessons, and it flows from one to the other. So it's really an easy to read book, but it's not easy to apply. And so some of the things that I've noticed that I've thought about a lot since reading this book, number one is his phrase where he says, draw a big circle and say that everyone's in. We don't have to be afraid of people who are different than us. We don't have to reject people that are different than us. The whole point is that we're becoming love, and we are loving people who are different than us. We just draw a big circle and we say, you're in, you're in, you're in. You know, it's like Oprah saying, you won, or whatever she says. But you're in, and you're in, and you're in, and you're in. And we go around our lives and we say, tell people that you're in the circle. You're in the circle of grace. I could read it to you. The way he said it is probably much more profound than the way I just said it. So that was one thing that really impacted me and changed the way that I looked at loving people who are different than me. The second thing that I think is one of the most valuable pieces in this book is how to love hard people that are hard to love. The subtitle of this is Becoming Love in a World Full of Setbacks and Difficult People. Do you guys ever have anybody difficult to love in your life? I'm sure you're all saying no, but I love this. Here's what he says. He says, here's how it works. When I meet someone who's hard to get along with, I think, can I love that person for the next 30 seconds? While they continue to irritate me, I find myself counting silently 27, 28, 29. And before I get to 30, I say to myself, okay, I'm going to love that person for 30 more seconds. Have you ever tried to love somebody who's hard to love? This is a good way to do it. Break it down into 30-second segments. And as long as we are trying to obey in that 30 seconds, we're trying to love in that 30 seconds, that's going to grow us one step at a time. And I thought that was one of the best things that I took away from this book is how to love people who are difficult to love. Because don't you guys have those people in your life that you're just like, wow, it's really hard, you know? And the other thing I wanted to share with you, I'm looking at the book. Sorry, I'm trying to find my little bookmarkers. See, there they are right there. Is the third thing that was one of the big takeaways was called the bounce. Love people on the bounce. Now, he goes into this whole thing because his son loves skydiving. And so he learns how to skydive. And he goes into this whole thing about, parachutes and all of that stuff and interesting life lessons. But the one thing he points out that I didn't know is that people don't actually die from hitting the ground. Hitting the ground breaks all your bones, but I want to read to you what he says about this here. He says, let's see. There's one last thing the instructor told us in class. He said if the main parachute doesn't open up and the reserve parachute doesn't either, you've got about 45 seconds before you hit the ground and make your mark. I was surprised and a little grossed out when the instructor said hitting the ground isn't what kills you. Every bone in your body will break, of course, but after you hit the ground, you'll bounce. And it's the second time you hit that kills you, as the broken bones puncture all your organs. I know that's kind of graphic, but it's true. And he said, it's usually not the initial failure that takes any of us out. It's the bounce. We've all hit the ground hard at work or a relationship or a big ambition. Whether we had a big public failure or an even bigger private one, the initial failure won't crush our spirit or kill our faith. It's the second hit that does. The second hit is what follows when things go massively wrong or we fail big, and the people we thought would rush to us create distance instead. They express disapproval or treat us with polite indifference. If we want to be like Jesus, here's our simple and courageous job: catch people on the bounce. When they mess up, reach out to them with love and acceptance the way Jesus did. When they hit hard, run to them with your arms wide open to hug them even harder. God wants us to be with them when they mess up, and he wants us to participate. And so he goes into like how we can help people not hit the ground on the bounce, and we can be there with them. And so I kind of compiled a little list of this phrase in the book says people who are becoming love, and I kind of compiled a little list of 6 things that people who are becoming love do. People who are becoming love see the beauty in others even when their off-putting behavior makes for a pretty weird mask. People who are becoming love are with those who are hurting and help them to get home. People who are becoming love keep it real about who they are right now while living in constant anticipation of who God is helping them become. People who are becoming love don't need all the spin because they aren't looking for applause or validation from others any longer. And people who are becoming love lose their labels because they know that they don't need them. And people who are becoming love celebrate how far the people around them have come. Now, if you read this book, Becoming Love, you're going to be blown away by the stories in it. There's stories of, harrowing flights through valleys, and there's stories of his friend who was trying to dive into a pool and ended up hitting the bottom there, and what he did with his life when he could only use his brain and his tongue, and that is phenomenal. And then also there's stories, the one story that I've told the most, well, there's Carol, his neighbor, who got cancer, but the one story that I've told the most is the story at the end. You're reading along in this book, and all of a sudden this story gets so intense because it's about witch doctors in Uganda and him trying to bring them to justice. And at the end, he ends up creating a school to teach witch doctors in Uganda how to read, and because nobody likes them. It's quite phenomenal, and you will, if you read that story, you'll understand why the front of the book looks the way that it does. And so just to leave you with that, that's my thoughts about this book, Love Everybody Always, not Love Everybody Always, just Everybody Always. I hope you'll read it. I hope you'll be challenged. I hope it will open your eyes, open your heart, and I want to leave you with one last quote from the book. God has never looked in your mirror or his and wished that he saw someone else. Just want you to know and remember that you are loved, and so greatly. You are so greatly loved, and not only are you loved, is that God takes delight in you. And that is quite an amazing thing. So I hope this gives you something to think about and to think about reading. So go live your big, amazing, beautiful lives, and I will see you on Monday at 8:30. Bye. Mwah. Love you all.